Hi guys, welcome to Learning Electronics Repair. I have a box here, okay, from AliExpress. This is a review item. I actually requested this one. I wanted to take a look at it, and I actually mentioned this on a previous video. So recently I reviewed the Aifen A9 Pro soldering station. This is the one compatible with C115, C210, C245 soldering tips, and it mentioned on the sales information that it was also compatible with C470, but it didn't actually come with a C470 handle or tip. So I decided to order one. I've not used a C470 before. I suspect probably a lot of you guys haven't either. So let's take a look at this, see if it does work on the soldering station as claimed, and see how well it works and what this is useful for. Okay, so in the box we have the handle and the soldering tip. There are a very wide range of tips available for the C470. I ordered this one because this is similar to the BC3 tip which I use on my T12 soldering station. Okay, this seems to be somewhat larger than the BC3 4C, and this type of soldering handle is designed for big chunky tips. Let's just compare that actually with the BC3 which I have. So yeah, similar but bigger. Those of you who are regular viewers, you will know that this is actually my weapon of choice when it comes to soldering and desoldering. Although it's a very large chunky tip, it actually has an edge, a sharp edge if you like, and I use this for micro soldering. I know you guys will have seen me soldering things down to 0402, little SMD resistant capacitors with this, and generally can do a better job simply because this transfers a lot of heat into the job. Yeah, very good thermal transfer. So you'll know if you watch regularly, that's my most common one. This is why I wanted to try an even bigger one to see how well it works. The other tip you see me using often is this one. So this is a C210 bent conical tip. I use this really if it's very fine work where there isn't much space to get in. I often have to use hot air to preheat the board a bit before I can actually solder and desolder with this one, but you will see me picking this up as well sometimes. And the other one you commonly see me using now, since I had the A9 Pro soldering station, is this one. So this is an in-between. It's another bent conical. It's not as chunky as that one, but considerably chunkier than this one. And literally I use it like an in-between when I want good thermal transfer, but I haven't got the space to get that chunky tip in due to nearby SMD components basically. Okay, so that's what I use. And obviously this is at the chunkier end. This is the largest tip I have currently. Okay, so we're gonna have a little play around with this, see how well it works, see if we can handle large and small components with it. And we'll make a comparison to the T12 because that's the one it's most likely to either replace or work alongside. Okay. Another factor which will be interesting, I think, in this is the fact that this KSGR handle, basically you hold it down here, so you have a very short distance between your fingers on the tip. And I think that actually allows you to have more fine control. This one obviously you are further away. So that's another thing as well. I'm interested to see, especially for smaller components, is this one as easy to use? Okay, so that's what we're going to do today. Just before we start, let's have a look at some of the tips that are actually available in this size. And as you can see, these are big soldering iron tips. Okay, the C470 is specifically designed for this type of tip, and they come in a very wide range of styles. Okay, so let's give it a go. I have heard anecdotally that the C470 tips take quite a lot of power to drive, so let's see how the A9 handles that. Switch it on. Okay, it definitely heats up slower than the 240, quite a lot slower. Starting to smoke. Yeah, there's definitely a big difference in the time it takes to heat up. I have this set, I think, at 380, which is the temperature I normally use. Yep, there we go. Okay. And it's melting solder nicely. Okay, let's try this. Here is a power supply, scrap off an old plasma TV. Some quite big chunky components on this, so it's probably a good example to use. And we also try to get some of these heat sinks off as well. That's probably another good example. Let's just go first with some of these larger capacitors. Let's just see how well this works. I mean, generally speaking, these are not too difficult to unsolder. And we have several of the same size, so we'll see if we can make a comparison with the T12. So here we go, one of these big ones. Okay. Came straight out, of course. This is my T12, same size capacitor. And yeah, I can feel the difference straight away. So this is taking longer to actually get heat into there. Okay. Warm up time's probably similar actually. Again, it made short work of the job. Here's another one. Okay, back to the C470. Yeah, I think you can see the difference. It's got obviously more mass. Straight out, quicker. Okay, here's something that should be a good challenge for this. This is glued as well. I'll just cut through the glue at least. I mean, I can probably just break the glue away, yeah, but cut through it just to help. Let's see. So we have some very large pads here. Get some soldering. Yeah, it's got that. Look, I can see it's melting. Let's see if we can actually free this end. Yes, but the actual component's getting very warm, of course. I'll get something metal behind it rather than my fingers. Okay. Yeah, clean out. Let's try again with the T12. And to get a fair comparison, I'm just going to let this cool down. It's still quite warm. So while we're waiting, let's try something else. I'm interested to see if I can desolder something like one of these. If I can get it hot enough from both sides to actually unsolder. This may well be glued, just to make life difficult. I mean, normally you would use hot air on something like this, but I'm interested to see how it responds to the soldering iron. I'll get a bit of flux on this just to give it a help. Yeah, a bit of help. Okay. Right, so I've wedged the tweezers underneath. Some wedded solder. Can we unsolder this? It's certainly melting the solder. Yeah, look at that. Ah. Okay. it's off quite cleanly. PCB fine. Oh no, took a pad off. Actually, I took the pads off and I was trying to clean it up afterwards. Yeah, that's when I made it worse. Okay, fair enough. It happens. It's a scrap board. I have another one of those chips here. Let's see if the T12 can do that. Bit of solder in. Again, I'll wedge the tweezers under the edge of the chip, under the legs. Okay, yeah, I'm in. That seems to be struggling to do it. Yeah, this one does it. You see that? Yeah, you can see this one does it. Bit of leaded solder. Yeah, off. Again, took a pad off. I mean, I think the reason this is happening because I'm effectively like lifting one end of the chip. So this is probably not a good technique to use, guys. Certainly not for repair work. I mean, for salvage work, it's fine, I would say. You can soon clean that up off there, no problem. Okay, we'll go back to this large inductor, this one. Okay, it's cooled down now, so we can get a better comparison. So we'll do the other end using the T12. Yeah, it came out. Bear in mind one end was loose, but yes, it did do it. Okay, let's go for something really big like this heatsink. I've unbolted the devices from it. It's clearly soldered with two large pads here and two large pads there. Okay, so 4 mounting points. There is a gap here, so we'll get the tool into the gap. Okay, let's see how well this works. So add solder. Add solder, and then it's going to be a matter of like heating both. Yeah, you see, like so. So that came really easy. It's not quite out, but it's, yeah, it is now. That came really easy, even before this warmed up. Okay, other end. Okay, as that went so easily, this should have no problem, I would think, on soldering these devices. This looks like a double diode type thing, 3 legs. Just get in there. Okay, I've pushed the little metal rod, the tool thing, through the middle. Yeah. Another one. So this is obviously a transistor or MOSFET. You don't have the advantage of the heat conduction between 2 legs, which we had there, but let's see. So solder in. Yeah, easy. And we'll try one other thing. So if you watch the channel, you'll know I regularly use that BC3 tip to unsolder and solder SMD components, small ones. And the technique I normally use with my BC3, add a bit of leaded solder, both ends, and then get hold of the component with the tweezers, often like this, actually across the end, sometimes in the middle, and literally just warm it up. Yeah, you see that comes off easily. And soldering them back on is basically just the opposite, so you just position the thing in. Yeah. So this tip actually works very well for that sort of work. I'm interested to see how the C470 works with this, or is it just too big for this type of work? Yeah, so let's have a look. I mean, it's obviously a lot bigger. And the other thing is I'm holding the thing further away. Okay, so I'm interested to see if we can actually do this and how well. So again, came off easily enough, went on easily enough actually, just got it flat then, a little bit more heat. Okay, so you could actually use this for the job also. I'm not sure you're getting somewhere like this. You see where I have a gap there, not easily. And I'll actually try this without adding no leaded solder. I wouldn't say that was easy to resolder because of the position. And yet actually I did it. It's slightly off, but it's in. I didn't actually move that one. Yeah, it's not as good for this sort of work as the one I normally use. That may be experience. I was so used to using that other soldering iron for this sort of work, as you all know from the channel. Okay, so let's have a bit of a summing up on this one. And this absolutely comes down to what you're doing with it, what you're using it for. Yeah, so depending on the sort of work you do, from what I've seen so far, it was a quick play around with this. In some instances I was damaging the PCB. I wasn't trying to be particularly careful, but I was using techniques I would not normally unsolder, like those ICs. I wouldn't normally do it that way unless I was salvaging. I would use hot air and then I wouldn't cause that damage. But that's literally down to experience and using the right technique for the right job. When it came to large components, the heat sinks and all the rest of it, this was far outperforming the T12. I mean, I'm sure you could see that. It's quite a big thing to hold in your hand, by the way. You see that? Compared to that. And I think the fact I can hold this closer to the end, yeah, for the fine work, it is an advantage to me. But again, I am so used to using this thing, yeah. So, Richard says, yeah, if you need a powerful soldering iron, depending on what you're doing, I know when I'm working on audio amplifiers and stuff like that, this is going to do the job. Yeah, it was very nice to use, and without even any practice really, I just went straight in there. First time I picked it up and I was removing large heavy components very easily, much easier than the iron I normally use, although the one I normally use is capable of the job. Yeah, I think you saw that on the heatsink in particular. The handle was about 20-ish euros. The tip, this actually was quite a cheap one. I think I paid about 5 or 6 euros for this one. I'm going to have a look now at some of the other more specialist tips for this. I'm pretty sure there are some which are designed for removing things like DIL ICs and quad QFP ICs. I think there are some. And if you're finding like where you have a lot of the same size chips you're working on it, that might be useful as well. So I'll have a look around. If you guys have got one of these, I'd be interested to know what sort of tips you use with it. And if you haven't got one of these, what do you think? What do you think? Obviously, you need a station it will work with, and the Aifen A9 Pro, it just worked as they said it would. Okay, so thanks for watching. Look forward to hearing from you. down there. And I also look forward to seeing you all soon again on Learning Electronics Repair. Ciao for now, guys.